welcome to today's video. Last time you saw me interpret all this mess to get something of a working pattern out of it for our little polar bear friend, and today I'm going to start it. So even though it's a pattern for a bear and I can technically choose any color yarn that I want, since white is one of the most boring colors in the universe, I could choose any color, except I got attached to the idea that it was going to be a polar bear. I've had this white yarn chilling for at least since the German video when I made the bride and groom. So I've been using some of these for the Mr. Rogers things going up, and I still have quite a bit of it left. So I'm gonna try to see if this is enough yarn for our polar bear friend. Play some yarn chicken. I think for the first part this will be pretty simple. I figured out the patterns for the most part. Anyway, I will be able to figure stuff out. I think I'll be able to start figuring some stuff out, so I'm gonna get started on that. Okay, so this is where I'm at with my little piece here. There are things that do not make sense, but overall I've been able to figure things out so far. I still don't quite know what this is going to be. My guess, when I started, I thought it was going to be the body because it was the first thing mentioned and it looked like one of the longer ones. But now I'm thinking it may be the head, because you see, there was like one row where it had me do 2 stitches for 20, like 2 stitches in the same stitch for 20 straight stitches, and it wasn't the entire row. And to have an increase like that creates a ridge like this, and this is a ridge that's more likely to be in the head and not the body. You put a ridge like this in the head, it creates a snout. You put it in the body, you get an off-brand Baymax from Big Hero 6. And the bear does not look like an off-brand Baymax. This is the only picture I have of the bear. And, well, actually I have 2 pictures. I also have the picture in the color insert. But honestly, when it comes to the shape of the bear, it's the same picture but one's in black and white and one's in color. And it's only a front-on view. And if you kind of look here, there's kind of like a snout that comes forward on the bear's face, but there's no such ridge on the body. So that's what makes me think that I'm working on the face. But it's only the first piece that I'm working on, so it's hard to really tell. There is like a symbol here that they keep using I keep mistaking it for a 6, but I know it's not a 6. I know it's a Russian letter, but I have to keep on reminding myself it's a Russian letter and not a 6, but it's literally in every row. I've also discovered a mistake. Now I know part of this is I'm interpreting this in Russian, a language I do not understand, and if I do this wrong, well, a lot can get lost in translation. I don't think this is the Russian that's wrong, it's the math. With row 13, I'm ending it with 56 stitches all around. Well, actually that's 20. And then between 20 and 21, I decrease from 56 stitches to 46 stitches. But if I'm understanding this correctly, it wants me to do 3 stitches and then decrease the stitch and do that 11 times, which it did have room to do that 11 times with 1 stitch left over when I did it. And at the end, I should have 46. 56 minus 11 is 45. It is not 46. You can't remove 11 stitches from 56 and still expect to have 46 stitches. You would have to only remove 10. Which means the math here is wrong. That could end up being a big deal. I don't know how big of a deal it's going to be. It could be nothing, but it could also ruin everything that I have done from that point. So yeah, I'm not too crazy about that. Also, I just noticed that there's an umlaut over an E here. I literally never saw that before. I didn't realize Russian used umlauts. Cool. Also, I realized there was this row here, row 11, that I wasn't sure, in that it had me do 8 stitches and 20 stitches and 8 stitches, and somehow it was different from the rows above it. And I realized it was the stitch. They wanted me to switch to a type of stitch. But because they insist on doing the bear in the stitch I could not understand, and so I did the bear in single crochet, and then they wanted me to switch to the single crochet. It's like, well, we're just going to stick with the single crochet. It's no big deal, right? I'm hoping that it's no big deal, that it really doesn't matter. But that could also be something that's lost in translation here too. We'll continue this bulb. We'll see how it goes. And like part of me when I was using yarn is like, wow, this is ending up smaller than I was expecting the bear to be, because I was expecting to make a bear like the size of my head. And it's like, well, Becky, you're using thinner yarn. Of course it's going to be a small bear. So there's that too. I have some updates on the polar bear. So I lost yarn chicken. I completely ran out of the white yarn, so I put on the blue yarn, even though it may look a little bit odd. But since this is the same texture and the same width as the white yarn that I was using, I don't have to worry about anything weird in the progression there. It's just weird in the color progression. And these colors also go together because white goes with practically anything. So this should work pretty well. And now I've got a better sense of, this is definitely, after all that time freaking out, this is definitely the head because this is the body. So it's going to go like this. Which means what I was working on, I think, is the ear. And I've got 2 parts left. So I'm also very hungry if you happen to hear my stomach. So I've got the first part that didn't really make much sense to me. It was like, huh, what's this? And I think I figured it out. So I've been going on the assumption that all the start with the magic circle. But I'm thinking like the parts I haven't made yet, like there are only 2 parts left, I think. Yeah. And they're limbs. If I'm going with the assumption that I already made the ear. So with the limbs, like I double checked the picture again to make sure that my assumption could be right, and it could be. What if it starts with a chain? Yeah, I think I figured out which word, like this word right here, in case I haven't mentioned it. That's together. That's decrease. I probably mentioned that before, but just in case I didn't. Especially with the way that the count is, it looks like it has me do 9 in a chain, and then it wants me to do 7 and then increase, and it only has me increase twice. That's chain talk. That's not magic circle talk. That's chain talk. I feel a lot better about this now, especially since from row 1 where I start with 9 and then suddenly I'm at 24 at the end of row 2. That makes a lot more sense. I know I got more than enough yarn to finish off my little polar bear friend here. I now more secure in knowing what parts I'm going to have to make 2 of, and also like what I finally have a sense of what the actual parts are. The only thing is I don't know which is the arm and which is the leg. I just know that they're different, but that should be pretty easy to figure out once I make them. So I'll check back in a little bit. Alright, at this point in the pattern, I have made all the different parts of the pattern at least once. So I'm pretty sure this is the ear now. I gotta make 1 more of these again. And then this is our body. This is our head. And then it's pretty easy to tell which is the arm and which is the leg, just from the way that it looks. And I can now understand why the pattern writer decided to make it a chain instead of the magic circle, because they kind of wanted that like feel. I maintain that for the hand it probably wasn't very necessary. For the leg, I can definitely see the necessariness of it, because now you can get that like cool effect. Although when I was working on the arms, this seemed really boxy. It's like, this is going to seem like it has like Barbie hands, you know? Like a lot of stuffed animals or Barbies, like Barbie has the hands that are like bent like this, and they're definitely like in that shape, and it gave that type of vibe. But once I added the stuffing to it, it filled it out. I figured out like what phrase is the stuffing phrase now, because it's appeared in multiple different sections of the same thing. However, put it kindly, this book is cheap. There are certain ways that the pattern is written that if it had gone through a more strenuous editor, would not have made it to the final publication. This is not a problem with the Russian. This is a problem with the math and the basic punctuation. This is a part of the pattern that is related to the main body part. And right here, where it says 19, like this is the 19th and 20th row. They want me to do the same thing for both rows. And then it's 19, 20. Which weird. Okay, I can see how you can make that choice. But then lower down on rows 26 and 27 where they have the same thing, it's 26-27. Exact instruction, just there's no reason why the punctuation should be different there. They should either both be commas or both be hyphens. I would prefer the hyphens. It seems like the book writer prefers the hyphens too, because I mean through 22 to 24 they do the hyphens twice. The 19 and 20 they don't do that, and like 9 to 14 they have the hyphens, if I'm holding my finger in the right spot as I'm trying to read backwards here. Right there. A little bit lower down, 19 to 14. I mean, if it's one typo in a book, big deal. Like, you can live with one typo. No one's perfect, yeah. But later on, like, when I was working on the leg, the math didn't add up on the leg. Like, the Russian worked fine, as far as I could tell. I mean, I don't understand Russian, so I'm kind of just that means the numbers themselves are more important. Once I figured out what was going on here with the chain, the math for the arm worked out. The math for the leg did not. To start off with, they had an instruction where it's just like, chain 10. Cool. But then they wanted me to chain 9 before I added the 3 stitches. And here's the thing. Like, I may not understand Russian, but I do have somewhat of, like, I've read enough pattern books to kind of know, like, this is a basic crochet instruction. This is a basic assumption I can make for something to follow. With crochet, when you've got a chain, you never crochet in the same hook, like the same stitch that the hook is on. So let me get some sort of example here going. So if I were to make a chain, I'm just going to throw some stitches on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So I got my single crochet here, yeah. So like each V right here is a stitch. When I turn to go up on the next row, the hook is not going to go into this stitch right here, this particular V. Because if I do that, the chances of the stitch that is, the loop that is currently on the hook is going to come out. And you're not going to be able to make the stitch. So pretty much everyone who does, like, and the amount that you skip depends on how big the next row is going to be. So if you make like a double crochet, it often goes to 2 to 3 depending on the pattern writer. Single crochet, you typically skip the first one and then go into the next one. And when you do that, like, and then you have the pattern say 9, that would just take you all the way to the end of the last stitch, which is this stitch right here. But the way that this pattern is written, you're going to have 22 stitches at the end after chaining 10. So in order to get that, they're actually having me go around the corner here and then work the other side, so that way it turns into the round. And you want the extra stitches to be on the very last stitch. So that stitch right there. Not this loop right here, but the stitch before that loop. So if I were to chain 10 and then do 9 single crochet and then do the stitch, you wouldn't have enough. So I had to chain 11. So that's the first place the math went wrong. So later on I ended up having problems with the math. And in that case, you could claim like, hey Becky, you changed the pattern, so of course the math is going to be wrong. No, I know that's not the problem, because that change in row 1 made row 2 and 3 work with the instructions. But then the second problem did come with row 3, because when I did everything they told me to do, they said there should be 34 stitches all around, and when I counted, there were 36. I did everything they told me to do, but they counted wrong. And the problem with math is that if you make a mistake early on and you don't catch it, it's going to carry through the rest of the work, which is probably a big reason, or perhaps the biggest reason, why math teachers often ask to see the work. So that way they can see your thought process, so they can see, like, they didn't get the wrong answer, but it's not that they don't understand the process, it's that they just made a simple computational error. Yeah? And that's what I think happened here. The person writing the math made a simple computational error, and it carried through, so that way when I went down, like, I went to row 10, and it wanted me to decrease, I had extra stitches, and there shouldn't have been extra stitches, because they're working off the fact that there were 34, but there weren't, there were 36 stitches. That's why I'm calling, like, this overall book cheap, because if the book had, like, the money given for the pattern testers, or if there weren't parts of the book that made it seem like they were trying to save money, these mistakes wouldn't be in here. Like, this is a book that has pictures on the front cover that are of patterns that are not even in the book. It has nothing to do about the fact that the book is in Russian. English speaking books could make the same type of mistake too. But I'm glad that I'm aware enough that I'm able to catch these mistakes, because I know, like, this book is written towards a beginner, and if a beginner came across these mistakes like this, it might be enough to make them give up crochet, because I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why isn't my thing matching it? And in this case, it's like, it's not your fault. It's the book's fault entirely. That's sometimes the case. That's why it's very important to be clear when you're writing an instructional book. Yeah, now that I'm done that little rant, I still have to finish the other leg, like the other foot. I'm in the straight stitch part right now. And then after that, I gotta make one more ear, and then I just gotta sew it all together. There was one part here that made me realize, like, I don't know what this is. I thought it might have been the ears. I now know that this is not the ears, because the ears were that other thing that had the weird thing. But I think if I look at the picture again, I might be able to figure out some stuff. But honestly, when it comes to sewing, I'm probably just gonna do some magic circles for the eyes and sew on the eyes that way. That could be, I thought that could be the hat and the scarf, but that's clearly knitting if I look at the picture again. Yeah, the scarf is clearly knitting on the bear. Yeah, and maybe those instructions I didn't understand, they were instructions for the nose and eyes. Maybe something I'll have to look at a little bit more. But yeah, I'm gonna have a bear. That's gonna be pretty exciting. I finished the bear. So just as a reference point, that is the picture of what I was trying to achieve. And this is what I got. I mean, yes, it's a different material and it's a different color, but even so, it's not the same bear. It's still adorable. I figured out this, like, part right here was how to make the nose and the eyes, which the eyes are simple enough to guess. The nose was a bit more of a stretch. It said, like, there was a 20 and then there was 4 to 5. So I made a guess, like, put 20 in a chain and then do 4 to 5 rows. So I did 4 rows, and then I went across this way. 20 stitches without bending it in half would have been too long for the face. Like, I just sealed it shut and I sewed it on, and honestly, I don't think I stuffed the head enough, because the head tends to be wobbly on stuffed animals like this. It's not the most secure head, even after going all the way around. And this here is, just because it's the same yarn doesn't mean that it works, because I feel like the white yarn was somewhat thicker than the blue yarn, just with the way that the ears are. The ears are not the same size, but it could also just be a tension issue on my part. The picture itself, I mean, there are definite differences in, like, the way that the limbs are. There were times when I was wondering like how, if I was supposed to like pinch the ends before sewing them, or if I was just supposed to sew them straight on, you know. But also like with the ears, it was a little bit difficult to figure out the ears, but I made my best educated guess because I got like a flat disc and like you can't really see the ears because of a hat. This is another case of this looks good as a picture, but as a pattern picture that you're trying to reference, terrible choice. Like this would have been the case where if you're going to have something against a light, like a white background, maybe don't choose a white yarn. Maybe choose more of a lighter yarn, or at least something with like a contrast, like a light blue or beige. Maybe even if you still want like that light feel, or maybe a pink, you can still get that light feel, but you don't have to put white on white and then expect the contrast to work for you, you know. I do consider it a win that I didn't know the language and I got this far, you know, that I managed to create a finished product. And this was the amount of yarn I had left of the blue. I completely used up the white and I only have that much left of the blue. This is literally scraps. I can't really do much with this amount. This is our little polar bear here. That was today's entertainment. Have a nice day.